Well, the most important thing is following the advice of Ajanis Wonder Planets for the primal diet. The big part of that is that like no matter what's happening in your life, as long as you're doing the diet properly, you're going to be growing as a person. And through developing your health, you're going to become more competent in every way. So you'll think more clearly, have more productive time and everything. And so like the diet's number one, but you also have to like live a good life and be a good person, because even if your health's progressing, if you're doing shit that's like, I'm a big believer in karma, if you're doing things that accumulate your bad karma, your quality of life is still going down, you know? And so for me, the most important thing is finding your passion and developing it to the highest degree, and then using it to add value to other people's lives, because that's what will bring you the most joy. And so your passion is what you enjoy doing the most, what you're the best at, you know, what you can do for the longest periods before you get tired. And if you use that to add value to people's lives, then you're creating good karma and you're actually doing something that's legitimately fulfilling. And so for me, that's drums, that's health and nutrition, nature, spirituality, meditation, all that. And so for me and the life I want to live, it's only possible if I get other people on board, because I want to live off grid and have a farm in a place with no pollution, with a dozen of my best friends and then their wives, and then we all raise our children together. That's what I want. And the only way that's possible is by influencing people. The people I want don't really currently exist. That hasn't happened yet. And what I want isn't just the primal diet, but the combination of the entire lifestyle with the spiritual philosophies. Just like, for example, it's very important to me, I haven't been in practice for a while because of life circumstances and also excuses I've given myself. But I like to wake up like an hour or two before the sun, walk, stretch, and meditate, and then watch the sunrise. And doing that is extremely important to me. I see like spirituality like in a form of training, where you develop your awareness, you develop your spiritual prowess. And when you meditate before the sun rises, those meditations produce the best results. And also watching the sunrise, you know, they're starting to prove it with modern science and stuff about how it stimulates the third eye through, or the pineal gland through, you know, all that. And so for me, it's like wake up before the sun, stretch, meditate, well, go for a walk, stretch, meditate, make my breakfast for the whole day, for the primal diet, not my breakfast for the whole day, the food for the whole day, eat my primal diet foods, then play the drums, and that's my perfect routine. And in the nighttime, meditating before I go to bed too. I was not spiritually aware at all. I was argumentatively atheist until I was 16, when I tripped acid the first time. And that changed my life, absolutely. And then I dove into spirituality, eventually found Ram Dass. For those who don't know, Ram Dass was a Harvard psychologist, who, I think it was Harvard, who, despite being well recognized for his understanding of psychology, felt like he knew nothing, despite his textbook knowledge. And back then, like, LSD was legal, and shrooms, and I think the first thing he took was psilocybin, and he took shrooms, and it completely broke his worldview. He's like, everything I've been taught, just like I felt all these years, is nothing. This is real, you know? And this was before there's any science in psychedelics. Nobody knew anything about them, except for the traditional cultures. And so he went around the world trying to understand what it was. And then through a long journey, which he details in his book, Be Here Now, he eventually found his guru, Maharaji. And Maharaji is an enlightened being who is basically the reflection of the highest ideal of how you could be. And in that state, it's pure love and unconditional love. And when Ram Dass was with him, he had a profound awakening. And what happened was that Maharaji, you know, he's psychic. He saw something that happened to him a few days previous. He saw a vision of his mother in the mountains. And he didn't tell anybody about that. And then Maharaji mentioned that, which he never told to anybody. And at first, it made him really paranoid, because like, how does this guy know this? But then something triggered him where he sensed the depth of Maharaji's love, and it completely broke him down. And it was like the most powerful ocean of love you could ever experience. And Maharaji, there's a lot of stories detailed about him, but by being around him, people transform with the power of that love. And it's very similar to like Christ, the unconditional love. and that's what the enlightened beings are. And so I got into my spiritual journey, started practicing the meditation, heavy emphasis, the foundation of developing unconditional love, and I eventually got into fasting, and like that led to a vegan diet because the spiritual communities talk about meat is bad for you spiritually and all that. So I gave it a try, and the first time I fasted, it was actually very transformative. I was like, oh my God, like this one day of fasting, I feel like I've gotten more out of this than the most of my acid trips. And I got hooked on the fasting. So I started doing tons of fasting. And then I became a vegan. I would eat like once a day, once every 2 days, or once every 3 days on repeat. So I was eating like 4 to 7 times a week, just one vegan meal. And I was dry fasting in between. So I lost all the weight, and the only thing at that time, so I went from being complete atheist to the only thing I think about is developing my spiritual consciousness. And the one thing that made me break my atheism was that I thought, if I can see myself outside my body but my eyes are in my head, there's more than physical reality. That was proof for me. That's when my atheism was cured. I don't like to say the word cure because I know you can get in trouble for saying it, but this is not related to health, so physical health. So, and then during the vegan time, the only focus I had was developing spiritually. So like I had my perfect routine, meditating all day, got really into that, but then my health started to deteriorate, and I started craving sushi. And I never thought about the fact that it had raw meat in it, but I started craving sushi. And at this time I was very focused on developing my intuition. And I was in my senior year of high school, and I was in my music class, and I was watching YouTube on fasting because I like to study. And the guy, Cole Robinson, the snake diet, ate raw meat in his video. And my mind was blown. Like, I watched all of his videos. The rest of the day at school, I watched the videos about the raw meat, anything I could find. I'm like, I'm doing this. I know I have to do this, like intuitively. So I broke my veganism spree. I went to Steak and Shake and I got my cooked patty, ate a few cooked patties. And then I asked my mom to get some grass-fed ground beef. She got it. I took one baby bite the next day. It was gross. Second day, I took 2 baby bites. The third day, I called myself a bitch. I'm like, just eat it. So I ate a quarter pound. And then from there, I slowly got on the diet, not correctly, but started incorporating raw foods. And I initially felt absolutely amazing. But what happened was that shortly before I got on the diet, I got 2 HPV vaccines, but the damage did not really hit me initially. And then I did all that fasting, and then I found the diet. And then when I was on the diet, I ate a very strong detox recipe. And so like my body was already in a very vulnerable state, and it just hasn't hit me yet. You know, all the heavy metals from the vaccines, I deteriorated myself incredibly skinny after getting those vaccines through the fasting. And this detox recipe, it's the moldy berries. I had like a half cup of moldy berries, and that starts dissolving tons of metal in the body. And so after I ate that recipe, I lost all my energy. I was absolutely miserable. Before that, I was so excited. I smelled the air, a sense in the air I didn't smell since I was a child that I didn't even remember existed. And even right now, it's hard, I can't really exactly recall it, but I can remember it. But it's like a purity of life that the diet gave me initially. And it was extremely transformative because it's like I discovered the most important thing that could ever be discovered. And it was the key to everything. And unlimited potential, more than like you could ever get out of life on any other lifestyle, because on this diet you get better with age rather than deteriorate from getting old. And the aging process looks very different on this diet because you might start to get, like, look, if you start the diet when you're 18, you might not ever get gray hair. That's a complete possibility, you know? If you're on the diet, you start to get gray hair and you do the diet really well, maybe after 40 years your gray hair will go away. I fell into deep fatigue, and then I started smoking weed again. And the only thing I could do to enjoy myself was smoke weed. So for 2 years, I was smoking a lot of weed, and I was doing the diet terribly. And by terribly, I didn't know what I was doing. I studied the books and stuff, but I didn't understand how to apply it. So I ate all my meat frozen. I never made the lubrication formulas or the milkshakes. I barely had any butter, just a tiny little bit. Never did the cheese. Rarely took hot baths. All these things are incredibly important. I never made vegetable juice. And every time I smoked weed, I would drink apple cider vinegar out of the bottle. So I'd be smoking a joint, I'd take like 3 or 4 sips of vinegar throughout that. And then at the time my wisdom teeth were growing in while I was fasting, I was 18, and then they grew in rotted. So like all the vaccines, the metals, they store in wherever you have the minerals or fat in the body. So teeth, because they were newly developed, they're storing in the teeth. So my wisdom teeth were rotted and they break off still. I haven't gotten them removed. I'm letting them stay in. And I've gone through extreme pain with my teeth, my wisdom teeth before. And like actually the most excruciating pain I've ever had in my life was from my wisdom teeth. It was just like 7, 8 out of 10 pain levels 24/7 for like 2 weeks on the left side and then the right side. And all this could have been prevented if I understood health. You know, I went through a lot of suffering and having no energy to be productive in any way. Anytime I tried to do anything, exhausted. I could not stick to anything because I was miserable and in poor health, and I thought I was just being lazy. I thought it was my mindset, but eventually I realized, oh wait, it's my health. I got those vaccines. Ogenus talks about how bad fasting is. I smoked so much weed. I drank all that vinegar. I ate way too many moldy berries, and I was doing the diet completely wrong. Then I finally learned the important principles you need to apply to do the diet properly. I started eating the rotten meat, the high meat. Then I was finally able to quit smoking because I could feel okay sober, finally, for the first time in years. And I gained like 20 pounds. I started doing lube and milkshake. I stopped chugging everything. I drank at room temperature and sipped like you're supposed to. I started doing the juice. Finally made some improvements in my health where I had like hope for my future again. Because during this time I went through extreme hardship of extreme paranoia about the New World Order. And I thought coronavirus was gonna result in anybody who didn't go along with it to be sent in the FEMA camp because they're a danger to society because they're gonna spread it. So I was very psychologically fragile during this period, the first few years of the diet. And then I had an extremely traumatizing acid trip in the middle of it, which fucked me up, and I had PTSD and I was having flashbacks off that. Crazy paranoid, thinking that the world was gonna end. And I was in a really bad state for some time, but the high meat is what gave me like hope again, because I could finally like feel okay, and I stopped being so paranoid. And then finally I quit smoking. I gained a little bit of weight, but then my mom got evicted. I became homeless, and I couldn't even do the diet. And then the last 4 years, that was 4 years ago, is a process of learning how to navigate living in the car, eventually getting a van, going through a whole lot to talk. That's too much to talk about, but eventually now I'm in much better health. I've made great progress. I am not satisfied. Many people are still healthier than me because I'm still recovering from a very bad place. So just because I eat a pretty good version of Primal, a very good diet, it doesn't mean I'm gonna be healthy immediately. It takes time. So a lot of people criticize that I'm not in phenomenal health, but it takes time, and also I haven't been able to do it properly given my circumstances, so it's been a process. And so how I feel now, I'm much more psychologically grounded. I'm not scared anymore about like the world ending or anything. And I'm pretty happy. I'm not satisfied, especially with my circumstances. You know, I have a lot I want to do, but I am very thankful and optimistic